Hey, it's Mike D at downpeppertreelane.com on a rainy blue Monday. I've been thinking about my childhood and rainy days, and I loved them in California. There's not many. So we cherished the rain, and I wouldn't have to play baseball. And I think that was an early indicator. I didn't really like sports, it was just something I just did with all the other kids until I was about 12, and then I dropped it and got into skateboarding. I wanted to talk about that for a while. In the late 70s, skateboarding became really popular again because the wheels became much better. They were like a polyurethane or something, and just much better constructed skateboards. And not everyone lives right by the beach in California, so a lot of us in the valley bought a really nice brand new skateboard. And my parents bought me the coolest, latest board, and we would go to skateboard parks, and they would have ramps and empty swimming pool bowls. And there's a movie called Dogtown you might want to check out about the Santa Monica skateboarding scene. And they would go into abandoned houses and vacant houses and just take over the swimming pool. But not me. I was from the nice suburbs, and we would pay our $3 and go to the Boogie Bowl, which was a place near Glendale where I grew up. And I had great flexibility as a kid. I would just go straight down these vertical pools, and even if I fell, I would just kind of bounce right back up. I mean, it's an amazing thing that kids have, this flexibility. I could never do it now in a million years. I'd run screaming from something like that. But and then skateboard ramps, sometimes they would be built on vacant lots in my neighborhood, and you can go back and forth and up and down and try to do tricks and everything. And there was one ramp in my neighborhood that was left up for about 2 years, just a vacant lot, and things were a little bit looser back in the day and not so uptight and not so many lawsuits and things like that and liability. It was just more of a hang loose time. David Lee Roth said it best from Van Halen. He said the 70s were like a big time out between the uptight stuff of the 60s and the 80s. And it's true. It was like, I've never lived through a period like the 70s where it was called the me decade. You could just go find yourself and be yourself and not really get too hung up on other people. And everyone was kind of doing their own thing. And just a great time to be a kid. Even parenting was really relaxed and loose. Just like let the kids run out in the neighborhood and be home by dark when the street lamps come on, and there were no cell phones or anything to track anybody down. There was just, it was just a nicer, kinder kind of a life, really. I'm glad I had it. So I remember the big album at that time, around 78, when I was skating at the Boogie Bowl, was Van Halen, the debut album. Wow. I mean, Jamie's Crying was huge, Running with the Devil, and You Really Got Me, which is a cover of the Kinks song. They brought it back, but they modernized it. I had no idea who the Kinks were. They were from a different generation than me. But a lot of bands like Van Halen would bring something like that back, make it popular again. So I subscribed to Skateboarder magazine. It was really cool. And you learn how to skate through life. I never quite forgot those 3 or 4 years I was skating around sidewalks and curbs and hills. And it wasn't organized sports. That wasn't for me. Baseball was too nerve-wracking. I mean, like this pitcher's throwing a ball like near your head at 50 miles an hour. Like I was done with it by the time I was 12. And one of my good friends got cracked in the head with a baseball, and it rang the helmet. It rang like a bell, and he freaked out and started screaming, and he quit right on the spot when he was about 12. And I'm like, oh God, that could have been me. Like, it's too much of a finesse. It's too stressful for me to try to hit this baseball that's screaming right at you. And I wasn't enjoying it. And only a few people are really, really good at it. And the rest of us were like bench warmers, and they put me out in left field, and just too competitive, not enjoyable to me. This is just my one man's opinion on Pepper Tree here. So skateboarding really took the place of baseball for me. And, for more free spirited kids that just wanted to go to skater parks and just do our own thing. And it was just a cool way to kind of go through life. I have a few more odds and ends. I want to talk about bubblegum. Believe it or not. Bubblegum in the 70s was like a really hard rock or a stone or a pebble, and it would be placed inside of a Bazooka Joe bubblegum, and it was painful to eat. But that's how it was done back then. Or it would be like this cardboard thing inside of a baseball card collection. And it did taste like cardboard. It was bizarre, but you just had to tough it out back in the 70s. Things were just a little tougher. Just eat it. Eat the bubble gum and enjoy it. You paid for it. You eat it. Kids in China are starving. That was one of my favorite things parents would yell in the 70s at you. Just do it. So we would eat this cruddy gum, and that our parents may have bought us, whatever. And so I think I was in 6th grade, elementary school, and along comes this soft, chewy, sweet, delightful gum called bubble gum. And at first it had one flavor, and then a little bit later, like cherry, and then it had grape. And I learned an early lesson in economics about supply and demand, because what happened was kids started hoarding bubble gum, and you would clean out like a 7-Eleven, try to find as much as you can and buy it for 50 cents. And then you could go to school and sell it for like $5. And I actually made extra money for a while, for like 6 months, I think. This was a thing. This was the great bubble yum era. And I learned all about economics and supply and demand and marketing right outside of school, just on our own on the playground, And yeah, you could make some extra change for a while. Just being the first to grab this bubble yum off the shelf and then mark it up, because it was just so chewy. It tasted so much better than the rocks and pebbles we were eating and cardboard. So bubble yum, I think, is still around, and it's probably changed the formula, but back then it was just a true delight of the late 70s, and a lot of fun. I do want to talk about some kind of downbeat, rainy day kind of music I think you might enjoy. Obviously, there's a great song by the Carpenters called Rainy Days and Mondays, and I always turn to that one. The Carpenters had some real moody stuff like Masquerade. You can try that one if you want. Masquerade is kind of jazzy and offbeat, and Rainy Days and Mondays, Karen did have a dark side. She was, fighting anorexia and fame and all of that. And you could kind of tell in her voice, there was a sadness to her. There's a song called Superstar you might like. And that sweetness with a touch of sadness is what we all love so much. So the other thing is, there's an album by Jan and Dean, who were a surf pop group, called Save It for a Rainy Day. It's hard to find. What happened is they were a huge success with surfing and skateboarding songs, and even the little old lady from Pasadena. And then they had a song called Dead Man's Curve, and it was about driving fast around all the crazy curves and turns in the Hollywood Hills. And they were into fast cars at the time. And then this is the weirdest thing that's probably ever happened in rock music. Just the most bizarre, weird thing is that Jan from the band Jan and Dean was driving a fast car, and he flipped it on Dead Man's Curve in the Hollywood Hills, and he had a really bad injury. And it took him years to have a partial recovery, and it pretty much ended the group, although they, he kind of sang a little bit, was able to do concerts later, but it was never the same. And so this was around 67, and they're like, well, we got to put out an album, and we have all these songs about rainy days. And so the album was called Save It for a Rainy Day, and there's a song called Yellow Balloon, and it's obviously sad and downbeat, but it's good. And if you can find it, it's very obscure. I like to share hidden treasure with you. So check out Save It for a Rainy Day by Jan and Dean. And they were part of the skateboard craze in the 60s, by the way, just to tie that in. Some other kind of a little bit more downbeat records are Bruce Springsteen, Tunnel of Love. He had a great song called One Step Up and Brilliant Disguise. Now, Springsteen suffers from depression. I don't know if you guys know about that, but he wrote a long book about it, and it really surprised me. I thought he was, this happy-go-lucky guy, singing in the bars and all that. And yeah, that's a big side of him, but he does suffer from depression, and it kind of comes out on this record a little bit. And Tunnel of Love, the title song, is absolutely fantastic. It's like this carnival ride, and really cool. So check out that one. And then Dire Straits they're kind of a moody group. They're just moody, okay? And it's kind of gritty, cigarette-stained European rock. And the record is called Making Movies. It's probably my favorite album of all time, believe it or not. It's my number one, Making Movies. And they have all kinds of songs about, the hard knocks of life. And they even had a skateboarder song called Skate Away to tie that in again. And a song called Solid Rock. And they had a song called Tunnel of Love that's absolutely fantastic. And Making Movies. It was kind of a hit at the time. They always did better in international markets outside the US. I mean, they were huge, like every single album in other territories across the world. And that kind of built up to their later success on MTV. But that's an early record that is kind of dark and edgy, and it's called Making Movies. So please check that one out. And then I'll just close with sometimes if I just close my eyes, I can see myself as a 12-year-old kid, in my bedroom in the 70s. And I'll just paint a picture, and it's just a fun thing to do. Maybe you want to try it too. But my bedroom had orange carpeting, orange shag carpeting. That was a late 70s thing. And my parents let me pick the color. Amazing. I'm like, yeah, I want tangerine orange. And they're like, okay, So I had a beanbag chair. Those are very comfortable. I recommend a beanbag chair if you can find them. We would go to these post-hippie stores, and they would have macrame and beanbag chairs. And I was blown away when macrame came back. I even have a video about that. I'm like, whoa, the 70s are really back in a way. And then I would have a big stereo, oversized, with vinyl records, of course, and cassettes were kind of coming in. I was taping my albums onto cassette. And a lot of my friends would do that. And big posters on the wall, like Peter Frampton, Kiss, Supertramp, AC/DC, The Cars, Tom Petty. I mean, I was kind of I wouldn't have a Carpenters poster on the wall. I'm sorry. That just wasn't cool. But yes, I would listen to their music kind of on my own. It was I was pop rock new wave around that time. Joe Jackson, I liked him a lot. Fresh out of England with a sour sound, moody and sour. And anyway, that is kind of paints you a picture of my 70s bedroom at the time. Just lots of rock posters and plenty of time to play vinyl. I had a waterbed. I would just lay down on the waterbed, just stare at the ceiling and listen to the album and the lyrics. And they really spoke to me as they do to any teenager. So anyway, I'll leave you with that. And I'm Mike D at dadpeppertreelane.com. Go to my store, check out my cool merchandise and vintage items. Support, like, and subscribe. Give me some love. Give me energy back. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Bye bye.